Good afternoon, everybody, and pleased to be here. I think digital society, I mean, all of us are living in the digital world. So the word digital doesn't have to be overdone. But as we go along and as we've seen, uh, COVID has really made lot of impact on normal life. And one of the biggest change it came is a lot of things that we were very used to doing in a physical world have moved to digital, especially shopping, communication, entertainment. All of these things are increasingly getting used on digital platform. And that is the reason digital footprint becomes that much more important, because not only our life is much more encompassed with digital, but again, it also creates a lot of risk and implications. And it is important to understand the impact. Uh, Again, in a business world, if you are a large business, there are a lot of resources available and you will be able to put money behind this. But if you are a small and medium-sized business, your obligations, your responsibilities still remain the same. But then there has to be a better way for you all to manage this. And that is what we are trying to. I'm just going to share a few thoughts. And hopefully that will give some sense to all of you to how to look at this problem. Okay. So I'll just to give you an idea how we want to run the next few minutes. Uh, Everybody talks about COVID starting a new normal. What does it really mean? Secondly, for a business to be digital, where does the value lie? Having a website itself is not meaning your business has gone digital. There's a lot more to digital. So we'll just explore very quickly how does a digital value chain, where does it bring value to the business? Especially for SMBs. We will see what you could do to do digital potential, exploit it fully, so that as a business you leverage this fully. And then it's important aspect of once you have become digital, what does it mean in terms of it is just not a physical lock and key. So how do you secure whatever digital presence you have across the ecosystem? We will finish it off with a small checklist that is given by the National Center for Cybersecurity, and then any questions and answers or any other conclusion. Okay. And Prerna, there are going to be you are going to ask some questions in between. Do you want to do this at the end of the call? I guess.
I think participants can ask questions at the end of the session. Also, they can ask questions on the chat, and we will be picking up some questions for that. And also at the end of the session, we will have a small poll to understand, people's view and make this session more interactive. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
And this session is being recorded, so in case if somebody has any problem, please flag us to us. Thank you.
So first, I mean, before we get into the detail, what does a digital footprint mean? I mean, there is a Center for Protection of CPNI has given a very simple definition, which is, I think, well understood. But it is important to know that from a business context, your digital footprint has two components. One is a very active one where you contribute to creating your digital traces, interaction with websites, your browsing history, your social media, etc., etc. But there is a lot of passive footprint that gets generated by virtue of your presence online or in the digital world. And it is important as a business to know, not just your active, it is actually important for individuals as well, but from a business point of view, because there are obligations like GDPR, etc., etc., it is important for a business especially to know how does this digital footprint, where all it exists and how do we manage that. For COVID created a situation that overnight companies had to make their employees work from home. A lot of companies were prepared for 10%, 5% people working from home. Suddenly, when your 100% employees have to work from home, again, that has created a lot of risk and situations and challenges that companies would need to look at. And that's what we are going to cover today. I have tried to keep it at a level that bringing in a lot of data points from different surveys and results so that it gives a context to you from a different point of view. So just to start off, right, not very long ago, I think maybe over a year, this is exactly what a lot of people thought about digital transformation. It's a 4-year program. We don't need it. I'm just a small business. I'm doing okay. And then the COVID came in, right? And that is where I think it redefined the way everybody looked at business, and it redefined We were forced to do that, actually. And that is why one very interesting joke that circulated quite across the time that because as you know, 70% of the digital transformation projects fail. Only 30% of them are able to reach their destination. That was the statistics before COVID. And that is why during COVID, who was the most transformational leader in business? And without doubt, it was option C, becomes a very viable, is the only answer, right? And if you just see the scale of it, right, there was a Bank of America did a study in terms of the speed at which digitization happened across businesses, and especially in a smaller and medium-type businesses. And they concluded that in the first quarter after COVID hit us, we covered a distance of worth 10 years of speed in literally 90 to 100 days. And I think that is the scale of change the world has been able to sustain. And that is what we now call very famously the new normal. And if you want to decode the new normal, what are the challenges it created for any business for that matter, right? Social distancing became important. The economy is becoming contact free. We're talking about practically everything to be done online. And just to give a simple example of this, Primark is normally one of the most popular, most attended clothing shop in the UK. But you might have realized that when they had zero online presence. So from the day the lockdown was announced, suddenly that was one big business that has zero online presence, and they were able to do zero trading. So on the dominance and the importance of online, whoever was even partially ready were able to move forward. Those who were not ready had to take down a very heavy losses. So business sustenance becomes a very important part. And again, when you are in a business where people are used to walk in, you have contact with them, building a relationship with your customers becomes easier. How do we build contact with people when you're not able to see them? And especially for contact intensive businesses, being able to have your relation, even for a restaurant for that matter, having a relationship with your local community who comes to you, if that contact is broken, how do you make sure that you are able to stay in business and thrive on the back of customer? I think those were the very key challenges that came in. And outside of that, there is a normal demographic challenge that is coming, that increasingly the new generation that is coming in and becoming adult and becoming into businesses, they are becoming digital native. I think that is an important piece. But at the same time, the new normal means there are a number of new opportunities in digital space. You have a chance to change business model, because a lot of businesses have been running traditionally for ages. And they say that if it is not broken, why fix it, right? But that is something stops you from innovating, stops you from looking at ways to do things better. So transforming the business model become one major opportunity. Just focus on products that matter. Make sure that your fulfillment and customer support capabilities strengthen. Accelerate your digital. Just having a website doesn't by any means make you digital. You need to have a far bigger integrated story about a front end, back end, your supply chain, your ability to interact and transact and complete a full transaction online. It is not having a website and somebody calling you on the phone, you sending an email, somebody dispatching it by phone, by physical connection. I think those things doesn't necessarily mean you are using digital in the best possible way, right? And that is why optimizing your online operation becomes an important piece. And the last thing is you can't do this in one way. So you will have to keep improving, keep learn and improve. I think that is the cycle. As an organization, you need to get better, because there are a number of changes that keep happening in the technology space, in your surrounding. And as a business, your ability to respond fast needs to get better in the digital world. And that is another important learning and opportunity for every business. McKinsey and Deloitte came out with different studies, but we just tried to synthesize that in terms of, where does the value lie when any business becomes digital, right? And unlike a normal assumption that being online means you are able to sell more and you bring better revenue, the 2/3 of potential value from digital business is actually in the back-end operation, not on the revenue side, but on the cost side. And that is an important piece to know. And that is why I keep saying that having a website in itself doesn't necessarily mean you are fully digital, correct? So on the revenue side, still you have an ability to increase your revenue through multiple channels, not just physical. You can have contact center, online, and integrating the channels together. You can give customers far more information. You can track them better. You can have much better speed at which you can market new products, because all you have to do is launch through your digital channels. It's much better than doing it in a physical space. You can do better marketing at customers. You can do segmentation in a much better way. You can use social media and channels cleverly to make sure that all your engagement with the customer is more enriching and more rounded. And the last piece is, because if you have an attention of your customer in a place, in a digital world, you are able to cross-sell or upsell in a much better way. You can change your pricing subtly without others to know. In a shop, you cannot say that one customer can get one price for a product and others can get another. You have to make it open to everybody. So targeting becomes very difficult. But in a digital world, you have an ability to micro segment and price it accordingly, and go bundle the products together, etc. Coming back to the cost side, a cost improvement of digital, one important piece is your margin improvement is an important area, because your cost of service goes down, your expensive infrastructure of physical shops and everything can be optimized. And you can have a better scaling mechanism through channels rather than shop front and opening up and all the rest of it. And most importantly, you can integrate your back office, supply chain tracking, just in time inventory, shipping time, all those things get optimized. And that is why the cost impact of successfully executed digital transformation is much bigger than just the sales impact. And this data point is not just something that McKinsey came out with, but essentially there was another survey done by BCG, and they asked number of companies who have gone through digital transformation to describe what are the 5 business drivers that they found as part of their digital transformation. Okay. And from that point of view, I think if you see the top 5 things, 50% of people said that revenue impact was the biggest, but 60% of them, 60 to 80% talked about spend reduction. Again, highlighting the point that I was making on the previous slide, that the impact of digital on your cost and cost side and the margin side is much better. Similarly, 73% of them said that they could market the product much faster. Again, ability to change and respond faster is one of the biggest hindrance many businesses face, that they're not able to change fast enough for the competition. Digital gives you that ability. And of course, 46, almost half of them also felt that they were able to connect and give a better experience to their customers. So I think the theory and the practical experience kind of complement each other in that sense. And that is why a digital experience, a digital transformation is an important opportunity, whether it came through COVID or otherwise is immaterial, but it has actually presented itself, and it's important for us to go for it. Now, going from that, again, if you want, as a business, you want to adopt digital fully, okay, what are the challenges in adoption? One important piece is a lot of people, a lot of businesses, so it is not clear how does the cost equation work, what all I need to spend on, how much is going to cost, what I can retain from the legacy, what I can change. I think that whole thing needs a lot of decoding, and that for many businesses is a big hindrance. Okay, how does one finance this kind of a transformation? Because smaller businesses, you don't have a very big budget. And again, there are ways to manage this. There are most of the companies and technology companies and the business models are such that it is possible to finance your transformation. You don't have to put a lot of capex and cash on hand. A lot of technology now is available on pay-as-you-go basis, and that is why it is important to understand the financing aspect of this. A third, a lot of people, just a lack of awareness, because as I said, if the business is not broke, if it is not broken, why fix it, right? And a lot of businesses in their traditional form have been thriving quite well in the SMB segment, especially, or even otherwise. So why break? And Primark being a classic example I gave you, such a large-scale business, but they never thought of creating a digital footprint, despite the fact that fashion and apparel is one of the fastest and the biggest industry on online transactions, right? And the last piece of adoption challenge is around training and support. I mean, where do you get it, what extent you need to spend, and how do we make sure that what you are spending on training and support is adequate, right? I think those are the kind of challenges that were identified by the BCG and KPMG analysis as well. However, I mean, despite the fact that digital is here, there is a big opportunity, and we are in 15, 16 months from the first lockdown in the UK. Number of companies have made a lot of strides in their digital quotient or being digital. But if you see the analysis that is being presented and the study and the way market is changing, the big opportunity is still way ahead. And as we go along, I will also share you some data from the very latest research that how far is the road ahead for companies in the UK and otherwise, right? So just to give you how the business is moving from the very traditional physical store, go to the shop, buy something, pay there, come back. Then e-commerce came in, you buy on online and somebody sends the stuff at home. That was a very simple transaction. Book online, get it delivered. It moved to multi-channel, so you could book online and then you could also go to the shop. Either you look in the shop, book online and all of that. So I think we all know this, right? But now if you see the omni-channel world, you can do click and collect, start order on one channel, get delivered on another channel, you go to the shop, like something, then come home, book it all. So this whole omni-channel means you are able to connect with the brand and interact with the brand in many particular way, and it is, you want to do it when I want it, how I want it kind of option. So if you are a business which is dependent on that kind of a customer base, it is important to understand how do you drive this omni-channel thing. And the last piece of this is the whole ecosystem play. Ecosystem means not just you and your customer, you are able to bring multiple pieces of the value chain together so that you are either part of a longer chain, so that you can not just sell it to your customer, but you can sell it to somebody who can then forward take it. And just to give an example, take Uber and their business. Uber was principally a replacement of a taxi company, taxi share service, right? And then they became Uber Eats. Uber Eats made sure that it suddenly expanded the reach for a small restaurants to a much wider set of customers. So ecosystem got created. And now Uber is using the same network to deliver non-food items. Yesterday, I was in London after 9 months, and I saw everywhere Uber was talking about, if you want to try your clothes at home, call Uber. So again, Uber being a platform, now suddenly an ecosystem of restaurants and now even the small goods will start coming together. So that is the big play. And just to give you statistics, when it moved from a physical to online multi-channel world, just the creation of online content, that industry was around 300 billion got created. The estimate is in this omni-channel multi-vendor ecosystem, the digital economy is going to be 10 times bigger than it's going to be 3 trillion. So that is the scale, and we are at the starting point of this journey. Okay, so that is where it is important to understand that the digital journey needs to be adopted in a much more serious way for the businesses for future. And this is why I think this is the slide which is quite interesting and simple, but very powerful in terms of its messaging. Cisco does this survey around small business digitalization. They published this last year, June 2020. They did this one study for APJ, and this one is done for the 8 economies that you can see here. And they kind of separated the businesses in terms of their digital maturity on 4 levels. The very first being digital indifferent, where you're only reactive, to the very top class being digitally native companies, right? And this survey focuses on small businesses, okay, SMB businesses, so pertinent to the sector that I think we're trying to talk about today. And they have said that even in the UK, I mean, it's quite heartening to see that UK is at the top of the top 8 economies that they serviced. But even then, they think that digital observer is at best where we are. So most of the initiatives are tactile and bite-sized. So if you see, if once you move to the next two quadrants, they'll view that even if 50% of the companies they surveyed in this segment actually are able to move to the third and the fourth part of fourth stage of their digital readiness, it will create a 2.3 trillion economy just in 3 years' time. And again, highlighting the same fact that if you take the previous omni-channel platform economy prediction, or you look at the prediction from Cisco, all it is pointing out is digital is not yet done. There is huge potential, and as a result, the businesses who have just started the journey need to accelerate. The businesses who have not started the journey need to get onto the train as early as they go. That's the key point. So, coming to how do you create and make sure that you unlock the full potential of your ecosystem, right? Because as I keep saying, this is going to be, digital world is going to be much more intense, but how do we start and how do we cover this whole thing, right? So the frontline web store, etc., if you do, and this is not just for consumer business, by the way, a digital SMB can be a completely B2B business. It can be a business that only services limited set of customers, but their ability to service those customers in a better way will make sure that they retain their position as partners and they can grow from there. Okay, and we've done this similar exercise with Vodafone for their SMB business sector, and we realized that there are 1.4 million small and medium businesses within the UK that are still in that first and second quadrant. So it's a huge amount of industry that is there to be growing, right? So apart from the customer experience and the frontline website and store, etc., supply chain, your fulfillment, I mean your cash to delivery, that side, and your analytics, which is where you can use the data to run your business more efficiently, avoid the pitfall, better target your customers, use your resource collectively. All these dimensions, 5 dimensions, if you can focus and leverage, then your digital readiness of a business will become far stronger. And then it impacts your business model, it impacts your customer strategy, it impacts your operations, and it also impacts your organization, because you need to see what kind of customers, what kind of organization I need, because you need a digitally native. There is always, SMBs have sometimes a very strong employee loyalty, but it is important for the leaders then to see how that workforce gets transformed for being able to do the digital work. One study I came across said that when the corona restrictions came and people were supposed to work from home, almost 75% of employees who were asked to work from home had never done it before. So imagine not just the need for upgrading and changing and training those people, but also securing, making sure that when they start transacting from home, how do you secure the digital footprint they create? How do we make sure that they don't make obvious mistakes that makes your business vulnerable to attack from outside, and so on and so forth? So I think all of this becomes an important part of thinking for the leaders of a business in terms of managing the digital footprint. Another data point. So when we are seeing that companies are increasingly understanding the need and the way this is going, so when we checked out around where is the money being spent from businesses on digitization. Okay, so top 2 areas were, of course, enabling remote working was the biggest one, of the obvious reason, and then improving the sales and the front line. But it was quite clear that a lot of companies are also now thinking about this as a strategic investment. Invest in talent, invest in strategy, creating and improving products which are specifically suited for digital economy. I think all of these are good practices and good steps to take, and that is what one needs to do. And amongst all this, it was quite clear that whichever segment of industry or SMB business you chose, all of them said that security was one of the top three areas. So one, it is quite good to know that security is seen to be an important aspect. And number two, it also underlines the fact that more and more security is a critical part of your investment in digital, right? So just to capture this in a little bit more simple steps point of view, how does one go about doing a proper job of turning your business into a digital savvy business, and what are the things to do and what are the things to avoid? I think we'll just try and build the last few topics on that basis. So in terms of building your digital business, it is important to make it as a structured strategic plan. It can't be a transactional or tactile business discussion. You need to be clear about which process or which business area is critical for you, and that is the area we should try and automate as well. Technology is an important part of being digital, so a lot of people talk about cloud and AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning. It is important to understand where and how this will play a role. Employees is your best assets, and employees are your best defense against any potential threats to your digital business and footprint. So making sure that remote working of employees is also making employees empowered to take the right decision, educated to do the right things, and avoid the wrong things is the important part. Having a ability to trade is very important. It will open the business to a lot of vulnerable risk if you just have a kind of, you cannot transact securely end to end in an e-commerce way through the website or through your digital channel. There's no point somebody calling you or sending you credit card details on the phone, etc., etc. So building an end-to-end commerce capability in your business is important, coupled with the cybersecurity aspect of it. And that is why it's important to have the right mix of talent. Okay, the talent of the future business has to be digitally savvy. Whether you train your existing employees to do that is important, but at the same time, when you go and hire newer employees, they need to be brought with an ability to understand and adjust with a digital business. Okay. Another important piece is an SMB cannot do a lot of things within their own skills. So it's important to find the right technology partner. There are companies who specialize for SMB business, but even most of the telcos, like be it Vodafone, be it BT, they all have very specific packages and service lines to service small and medium businesses. A lot of business financing and incentives are available for this. So again, while running and budgeting this, it is important to make sure that you look around and pick up the right option that can manage your cash flow, manage your budget in that way. Last and important thing is share the learning and be vigilant and be open to hear about experiences from others. A lot of people are doing it first time. This is not a well-established and proven template for everybody. So sharing and learning and improving, I think, are going to be important pieces of this. So that is how you can actually set up and make sure that taking these steps, you will go and build a much better digital business. Now, having done that, you will have a situation that you start working with a lot of data. And a lot of people say that data is the new fuel, data is what drives the businesses of future. So it is important that once you become a digitally savvy business, you then need to make sure that you have the ability to harness the data to the best, at the same time manage your data footprint in the best possible way, so that on one side, you can leverage the data for the best possible growth of the business. On the other side, your ability to manage data is strong enough so that you are not exposed to two kinds of risk. One is risk of cyber attack or risk of attack and ransom. And the second is regulatory risk of you not being able to protect the data in the stipulated way, like a GDPR, etc., and then being open to potential fines. Okay, and as you know, data breach is now taken so seriously by regulators and rule makers that it is a board level punishments are meted out. So both sides, I mean, managing data better will help you use it for business, and it will also help you avoiding the risk to business. Okay, so that is the key part. And again, another survey from IDC, they said that out of 100% of data that organization generates, they are able to capture and use only 56% of data, and 44% of data they cannot even capture. And out of the data, only 57% of that 56%. So effectively, only 30 to 35% data is actually productively used as of today. So if you manage your footprint well, there is a huge opportunity to use that additional data point for business growth. And that is the opportunity that I think every business that starts early, every business that invests in being digital can actually capture going forward, right? And then once you know where your data lies, what kind of data you have, just to take one point, I think how does one kind of manage this data? It is important to take an inventory of all the data. It is important to make sure that you know what are the assets you have in terms of your digital assets, but it's also important for you to monitor from time to time what is being said, that passive digital footprint that you have, what is being talked about you on the social media. Are there platforms that are making reviews, comments, etc. about you? Are there any regulatory, like Company House has published data in which your name is there? So it is important that somebody is constantly monitoring the footprint. Okay, and this is an area, this is where I think the last piece of this is how do we make sure that you manage and stay safe in this digital world, right? Because it is going to be very expensive to save on security. Okay, the table above, if you see, they just did a study about what is the cost of every cyber attack for business, okay, on an average. So they found that even if it's a small business, let's say 1 to 9 people, to 1,000 plus business, if you see, the cost of cyber attack doesn't proportionately change. Okay, if you see the middle three block, you will see that whether it's a 10-person organization or a 1,000-person organization, you are between 50%. Cost per attack to you changes only by 50%. So it is important. It doesn't matter how small you are as a business or how less employees you have, your propensity to get attacked still there, and the cost of that attack to you, in fact, for a small business, proportionately is much higher. Okay, and that is why it is important to make sure that you have to invest very strongly into a governance and security and monitoring environment. And again, it is not necessary that this is a very expensive affair, but it is important that somebody from the leadership of the organization spends time to create that mechanism and have it in place. Okay, and again, giving additional information on this is IBM is one of the topmost industry player. They have huge amount of security proposition. When they did come out with the publish, they did a very detailed report on cost of breach and how do you manage. But from an SMB point of view, there are 5 takeaways. I think 5 things that are priority that any SMB should do. One is they need to set up a business continuity and incident response team. Just take and imagine. I mean, I know a small business. A friend of mine runs a very small 50 people organization providing software services for hotels and event and menus. And he's an IT director. And even that business, which runs in a small Hertfordshire village, and they do well, but they got suddenly attacked and they were held for ransom, and somebody was asking to be paid in Bitcoin, some heavy amount and all of that. So small or big doesn't matter, but so at that point, the importance of having an incident response playbook ready came out very handy for them. If the business had not thought about how will we react in the case of an attack or in the case of a situation, a lot of early time goes just about getting yours, and then maybe the chances are you won't have the most efficient response. So having a business continuity plan and an incident response plan and team is one of the most important part. Second, simple to do, but very important is encryption wherever possible is another important piece, and it is easy to do. Third thing, as I said earlier, employees are your biggest risk in a way, but they're the biggest asset and defense that you can put against any of the cyber attack on your digital footprint. So making sure that your employees are trained all the time and aware of do's and don'ts, aware of the potential vulnerabilities is important. Analytics, as I keep saying, one of the fifth block in that slide was analytics. Today, a lot of data is available. Okay, it is just a matter of finding the right way to manage this data and keep an eye so that your security analytics tells you how you are doing and how you should be better in yours. The last piece of this is about there are a lot of insurance cover is available from different companies, different areas. A lot of companies see business insurance as not necessarily the most important part of their spend. But what IBM study suggested that it is one of the top 5 areas that companies should invest so that there is sufficient cover in the case of an unfortunate incident. Okay, so this is all about understanding how to make your business most digital, understanding where all your data lies so that your digital footprint is clear to you, either active or passive, and then making sure that you spend time, effort, energy planning in creating these opportunities on one hand and this safety governance mechanism on the other so that your business grows from strength to strength. I think that is long and short of how one should kind of look at managing their digital lifestyle or digital business or digital footprint. Coming to the final last couple of slides now, I think in terms of as I said, there is a lot of research available, a lot of data point available. I hope some of the steps I covered resonate with some of you, and for some of you, they give some roadmap of going. National Center for Cybersecurity, also another government body, they've come up with very simple but very powerful advice on how to keep yourself safe. Okay, I think I suggest people go and have a look at that. They have given much more detailed steps around this. But 5 simple steps, again, make sure that you have a data backup plan which are secure, different to your standard, the normal place of work. Make sure that your software is always up to date. Keep updating on time so that there is no malware or anything like that. Make sure that your employees, and especially if they're working from home, their equipment, phone, tablet, laptops, there is a clear plan and policy to keep them safe. Use strong password, have an ability to keep changing, especially one of the important finding one of the surveys said was in smaller organization, for some critical system, the passwords are commonly known across everything. So if the employee goes or not goes, I think it's very difficult to kind of feel comfortable. So have a policy that will make sure that you have strong password, but also the passwords keep changing from time to time. Have multi-factor authentication when possible. Nowadays, technology like this is also very easily accessible, not very complex to implement. And last point being continuous monitoring, because that is one of the best defense to avoid getting into this. Right? So that was practically my last slide of the day. So I just want to finish on this interesting quote, and I think I'm quite impressed with this, the way this is captured. The illiterate of 21st century is not about reading or writing, but it is about your ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. This is Mr. Toffler. So just to conclude, where do we stand today? I think it's important to learn digital, data, security, social media. It is important to unlearn some of your outdated tech and processes. I need to relearn customer experience in the digital world. You need to relearn marketing in the world of omnichannel. And I think that is all I had from me. Thank you very much for listening. And maybe I hand over to you, Prerna.
Thank you, Bhushan, for such a thought-provoking webinar. And this is a series, and I'm sure that the first one has done fantastically well. And on behalf of my team and on behalf of Brunel Hive and Brunel University, I would really like to thank you, Bhushan, for the wonderful presentation. And also, still the poll is on. And as you know, that this is a research scholarship and engaged scholarship, and your views as participants would be very useful in further strengthening the research. And as I gather from Bhushan's talk, that if we manage our digital footprints well, we can generate business value, we can bring in more transparency within our organizations, and we can devise our policies to create that value for ourselves, surrounding, and also for businesses and individuals. Bhushan, we have few questions here. So there was one question which came from Mr. Day, and he is asking that given current COVID situation, what is the future for India in digitization? That is one question. And from me, there was another question that where does this digital footprint strategy and how do organizations manage the digital footprint to generate that ecosystem which kind of coexist, and what is the roadmap? Because like within months everything changed. So how is the space is going to slow down, or is it going to be fast track? I'm curious to know that.
Okay, okay. So let me take the first Mr. Day's question, right? I think where does this if you talk about India as the typically, I think most of us came from the Indian IT kind of scenario where working from remote was good. I think last few years it was changing. The value from Indian companies were trying to see that we can do more up-end work than the cost arbitrage. I think with the digitization going up, I think the way people and India as a business community needs to engage with the world is changing. It is more focused on IP. It is more focused on outcome-driven engagements. It is also more focused on moving away from cost arbitrage to platform services. Every aspect. It is no more just an IT that is being exported, number one. But at the same time, there's very interesting dynamics that developed. A lot of last 3-4 years, people who are close to this IT industry know that people are talking about moving work onshore and close to business and everything. And then suddenly COVID again demonstrated that if you're not in the same office, then whether I am from in Bangalore or I'm in Bangalore, it doesn't change. So again, we are seeing that a lot of companies will again start to relook at their on-site offshore strategy. So there is an opportunity there. But by all means, I think the narrative has moved from IT services to much more digital service. That is one. In terms of how companies are responding, Prerna, and how it will, I think it's a Morse curve, right? I mean, not just technology, but people's learning also goes very fast. So while we were talking about, I mean, the generations where I come from, where we had to learn quite a lot to understand digital and the security and the footprint, I think the new generation is much more aware of this by design. So I think the pace will accelerate. And at some point of time, a lot of things that we had to learn, people will adopt it by default. So the amount of learning will be in a different area. So my view is the pace is going to be faster, and organizations need to be, as I said, constant learning, constant training is important, because security of data is not just business to business now. If you see, cyber threat is even political. Everybody talks, right, from China attacking US institutions and I mean, I don't know the truth, but the point is it is seen as a political weapon, and that takes it to a very different dimension altogether.
Thank you, Bhushan. That's thought-provoking. And today you have given a lot of thoughts for people to take away from this, like to build a robust ecosystem and managing your digital footprint for business value is the key. And for attendees, I would like to request that still the poll is on and you can participate in the poll. And please keep that in mind that it's an engaged scholarship, and the research would be useful for social good and for business value. So it's necessary that we all learn from each other. And to keep this learning on, we would be having a webinar series every year where the theme of digital footprint and creating business value, how could we bring in transparency within your business processes? How could we bring in more security within your business processes? How would you train your people to manage the digital footprint? Those kind of webinar series would be on, and we would keep you guys posted about our next session. And thank you very much for the attendance, and thank you very much for the questions and participation. And also, I would like to thank our research team, Dr. Oslem Azra, she is here. Dr. Asia, she has fantastically organized this webinar series, and she's going to take this initiative forward, and she would be in touch with people in case, if they have further questions. And also, I would like to thank another colleague, uh, uh, Ainurul Rosli. She's been very, instrumental in getting this sorted, and also our Dean Jane Handy. And again, thank you very much, Bhushan, for all your contribution, and thank you very much, all participants. And we are aware of time that we have to finish that in time, and I'm sure you will participate in our next sessions as well. And still, we would wait here to get some more responses on the poll, and maybe any last minute thoughts or any last minute observations anybody has. Please feel to chat with us, and we will take those questions on. So we will wait for a couple of more minutes.
Sorry, Prerna, there is few questions in the chat box. Would that be okay, Mr. Patil? I read it for you for getting your advice and your view on that. Would that be okay, Mr. Bhushan, if I read the questions for you?
Yeah.
Is a question, is one of the attendees is asking, Subhaditra, I think, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name not incorrectly, it says India being highly affected by COVID-19 and a steep fall in economic growth rate fall is seen so far. So how you see the future of India regarding adopting digital solution, especially in SMBs and unorganized sectors?
I think one thing I mean, not just because I come from there, but one thing I've seen, the speed of technology adoption in India, in every across the board, is much faster than a lot of Western world. Okay, so I think the fact that this has forced a lot of people to adopt digital faster way, I think the ability of the whole society in the SMB sector is only going to get better. Okay, and just to give an example, the whole vaccination program in India is being run through a digital app right now. And the fact that for a country like that, 1.2 billion, take digital route to vaccination itself tells you the confidence of the leadership into the whole system. So I think they will adopt it faster. It will take some bumpy ride, but it will come on the digitization front. I'm pretty confident. The connectivity, etc., all the soft indicators are in place.
Sure. Thank you very much. And one more question, sorry, if you don't mind before you go.
No, please.
Mohammed asking, moving to digital requires user education and change management. Mm-hmm. Is cost and revenue the only binary through which the benefit can be communicated?
Sorry?
It says, is cost and revenue the only binary through which the benefit can be communicated?
Not necessarily, but business runs more on finance than ideas, right? So ultimately, you are best. The reason I brought that out of the cost and revenue was more to make a point that this is digital is not just about getting new customers; it is the whole value for business. Okay?
Yeah.
In that. But there's of course other ways to get value out of digital, but those were the more important points to make out as a top two areas.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Thank you. We couldn't appreciate it more. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And thanks ever so much, Dr. Bhushan. With a short notice, you accepted our invite and you came and done a great presentation. We very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for spending your time.
And thank you. If anyone got a question, you can unmute yourself, and we've got plenty of thank you, Mr. Bhushan, here on the chat box, which I pass it on to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending.
Somebody is saying that it's an enlightening presentation, Mr. Bhushan.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. I hope.
Yeah, and somebody wants to know the future of 5G. I think it's going to be a series.
I'm starting to write about 5G. No, I'm starting to write about 5G quite a lot. If you follow on LinkedIn, perhaps over the next couple of weeks, you'll see a lot of things. It is going to get better, and it will be real in a year's time for sure.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhushan. Thank you so much. It was very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a great day.
Everybody. Yeah. for the
Thank you.
participation in pool, and we will keep you posted about the future events, and we would love to have you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.